All right. I got a challenge for you guys out there. I want you to listen to all of the episodes of TV Guys. Wait, no, I think what you just heard was I want you to listen to a lot of episode of TV Guys, when in all actuality, what I said was I want you to listen to every episode of TV Guys. I didn't try and do an impression of him. I just
I'm debating if I should mention that the only people who can do that are you and me.
don't tell them that. Then that's going to ruin it. Hey everyone, welcome back to TV Guys, the show that's just like the character of Mark, completely unnecessary. I'm Matt.
I'm Brian. Earlier I was thinking okay, we've done a lot of Mark bashing. I wonder if Matt's gonna do it again. And the first thing you say is Mark bashing.
Right out the gate. I mean, it's really easy. Every time Parks and Rec comes up, Mark sucks. But the other characters that sucked early on too, they weren't a series regular, so they don't get as much flack. But any of April's friends, Warren or her two gay
the boyfriends that had each other,
boyfriends,
that was dumb.
Yeah.
See, the thing is that I don't actually hate Mark as much. Mark isn't the TV characters I hate way more than Mark. The fact is that I'm just kind of ambivalent towards Mark, and Mark was unnecessary, whereas the rest of the cast is so strong, it makes him stand out in comparison because he was never as strong as all the rest of them.
Very true. Although I will say Ron was rather weak in season 1. They gave him his character in season 2, and he's much better.
I agree with the post I saw. They said that Parks and Rec found its stride when Ron and Tom switched outfits, because Ron was wearing suits in the beginning and Tom was just in casual clothes. And once Tom started wearing suits and Ron stopped wearing suits, that's when it started getting better.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say its stride. I know it was good from parts of season 2 on, but it was fantastic television in seasons 3 and 4, 100%.
And 5. I'd say 3 to 5 is the sweet spot, personally.
And any of the later seasons are fine. Yeah. And there's some really good episodes in them. I think I have some episodes that are really good, but it's Counselor Jam. I was whatever. The best arc that they did was either Ben and Leslie or Leslie and her run for city council, which also coincided with seasons 3 and 4. Both of those are fantastic storylines, and they did them really, really well.
What's one thing I think about earlier that Parks and Rec does very well is it's episodic, but also they have a really good attention to detail. For instance, all the different city council members, Dexhart, the pervy one who's always getting scandals, and Milton's the super old racist one, and Jam, who turns into a more ongoing villain. A lot of these guys could be just one-off characters, like Dexhart. You would after that Christmas episode, you wouldn't expect him to come back. He's just a townie, But later on, when Leslie becomes the city council, they're all there. It's boring bureaucratic Avengers. They all come back.
Or even some of the people that just yell at them or present these terrible arguments in any of the public forum meetings. You see them a lot. Yeah. They keep coming back.
I don't know if he ever has a name spoken, but you know who I'm talking about when I say chanting guy, right?
Yeah.
So this was a very difficult episode to prepare for because I realized it is so hard to narrow down 3 episodes of Parks and Rec. This is a fantastic show.
Yes, it is. There's like I said, there's a lot of really good ones. And I think for me, I even was because seasons 3 and 4 are so good, I was trying to branch out from outside of those, but there's some really good ones outside of them too. And so I actually ended up with 5. I've got a top 3, and then I was two honorable mentions.
Because I did do the 3 like I was supposed to, but I also have 3 honorable mentions. So technically I have 6 I could talk about, but I guarantee we have some overlap.
All right, let's do top 5, and then you can give us your honorable mention as well.
All right.
So go ahead and go first. Did you have them ranked?
I'm just kind of quickly doing it in my head. Okay. I will say number 5 would be Harvest Festival, which is a fantastic episode. And it's one of the ones that really cemented that team as a group. Ben and Chris became part of the gang preparing for Harvest Festival.
Yeah, and I've said before, one of the things that I really, really like that they did in that episode was allowing them to have the moment and showing you the wide shot of the Harvest Festival and
Yep.
Leslie just soaking in, we did it, this worked.
Yeah. And there's so many great moments, introduced little Sebastian.
Yeah.
And it's got the moment where everyone's on the Ferris wheel and like I love you, dude, that's awesome sauce. And then Andy at the end just being like, well, yeah, I love you too. That's what makes the sauce so awesome. It's like such an easy way of thinking of things. He wouldn't even think that, oh, I should say it back.
And then I like what is the tribe name?
The Wamapokes.
The Wamapokes. I really love the Wamapoke guy preying on like the white guilt and like doing it's a curse. It's so funny to see, because I've seen that a lot of times, and I've known that from like some of my friends who are Native American, that they love that trope of like, if white people are going to be so afraid of the customs of any certain tribe, they're going to mess with them and they're going to screw with them. And I love that art that they did.
I just caught a little in joke that I had never caught before. He says on the screen, like, if I know two things about white people, they love Rachel Ray and they're terrified of curses. And then later on, when it shows like there's only one place in the city that has this kind of voltage, and it shows the Wamapoke Casino, and the sign says now like showing tonight Rachel Ray.
That's a great attention to detail joke.
Yeah. I really think, like, was Chris even in this episode at all? I can't really remember a Chris moment.
I haven't seen this episode for a while. I'm going off of my recollection. I don't know how much he did.
Because Tom and Jerry were with little Sebastian. Ron was off reading his boat. April and Andy had their moment. Donna and Anne were in the nurse tent. Obviously, Ben and Leslie were running. That's right. But I don't remember what Chris was doing.
Chris was just hanging out. I don't know. I don't know about this one.
Maybe he was the only customer of Sue's salads.
Might have been. Well, that sounds like somewhere he'd go. All right, let me hit you with my number 5. This I would imagine is on your list, and it's probably higher, but that is from season 2, Sister City.
That was my next one. Yes.
Okay. I really enjoy this episode. I think it's so funny. It's the best episode of season 2, I feel like. And a big part of that is Fred Armisen. Fred Armisen's character is just
entirely Fred Armisen, I think.
Yeah, his character is so fun. It's hilarious to see his pretension and his cockiness, but then also like the rant that he goes about jail. Of course, that's you got to talk about that when you talk about this episode.
Yes.
But just really the reckless abandon he has for everything at the Parks Department, and like how they're slowly catch on from changing, like, oh, these are honored guests, to these are terrible people. Yeah. And so, when he gives his speech at first and they weren't expecting, is like, thank you for having us in your dirty alleyway where you gave us a jar of sap and a thing of garbage.
And at first you're thinking, oh, maybe something got lost in translation. Like, no, and then you realize, oh no, he meant what he said.
Yeah, exactly. And that was Leslie saying, it's like, his English must not be very good. There's also the fun little thing that he does with Tom, where like
giving him money.
Tom, and so then eventually, like at first, Tom is like super offended. Like he's like, "Oh, is this your servant?" And Tom's like, "What did he say?" And then he offers him money. And then Tom quickly adjusts to this role and he starts doing more and more. And then you see him, like, he brings a Crunch bar. He's like, with all of the Rice Krispies taken out. Interesting choice. And then they give him like the tip.
Also, bold move to have a blatant prostitution joke, but he's like, I will take the larger black woman.
And all of them pick Donna. And she's like, that doesn't surprise me. I've been to South America. I did very well there.
And then at the end, it shows her and April are like in Venezuela.
This was the first time, like, I think I really laughed out loud at April and realized what a great character she can be. Yeah. Where she's like, I'm part Puerto Rican. She explains my fiery behavior.
Yeah, it's why she says why I'm so lively and colorful. But she says it like so lively and colorful, like no expression at all.
100% deadpan.
And I didn't even rewatch that episode. That's just in my mind.
I know. I don't. My quotes are off today. Don't yell at me.
I love Fred Armisen. I also love the recurring character he is on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, the Maliknos. Like, have you seen this person? Thank you. And he takes a picture.
Fred Armisen, you bring in to play off the wall characters.
Yes.
Like every show that I've seen him pop up where he's not Portlandia, not where he's like a main. He's just like, let's give you crazy. And he does well with it. Like Uncle Fester recently in Wednesday.
Yeah. He's kind of along the same vein as Jason Mantzoukas, who's also in this show.
Yes, I have an episode that has him in it. So
I don't. So I'm interested to see what you have. That was your pick. Now it's mine.
Yep.
I'll go with a classic early in season 3, which we mentioned, I think is the strongest season, even though my number 1's not in that season. But flu season. That's a lot of words I said season.
All right. I'm mad at you because that's actually my number 1. That's
your number 1?
That's the funniest episode of this show.
Should we wait and hold on to it, or just talk about it?
Sure. So we know that that's your number 4. When we get to number 1, we'll talk about how great that episode truly is.
Should I just move up to my next one then?
Yeah, sure. You got your honorable mention, so go ahead and talk about that.
All right. Next one is super close to being on my list, but I will go with Hunting Party, also in season 2. We're doing back-to-back season 2s. Back-to-back in the Mark era.
With how much you bring in the Mark era, with how much you bring up that episode, I thought it would make your top 5.
It would, because it's the exception you have to say. It's like Sister City and Hunting Party. Aside from those two, it gets so much better in season 3.
Yes, yeah, Hunting Party is really funny, and we've mentioned that one a lot. We've quoted it.
Yeah, I mean Ron getting shot in the back of the head, and Leslie being obsessed with being part of the boys' club, and of course Tom not getting a license. All of that is great, and I've heard from some people who watched that episode who are hunters, because I don't think, Matt, you're not a hunter, are you?
No,
neither am I. No. They say like just watching it and how they shoot the guns, it's so unrealistic because like there's no kickback to them. They're just like obviously toy rifles.
I really love like is it Anne who takes a shot? No, I think it might be as Leslie, right behind Ron or one of them.
That's just Leslie, yeah.
That sounds like Leslie. Just takes a shot without any warning, scares the crap out of him.
Yeah. But also that was the start of April and Andy, because April and Andy are hanging out back at City Hall, and that's when they start to bond. Right.
The piggyback rides.
Mm-hmm. And isn't that where, just to make her jealous, April gave Andy a ton of hickeys to make Anne jealous?
It's been a long time since I've seen it.
Because they talk about it at the end. He's like, "Oh, hey, yeah," and he's like, his neck is covered in hickeys. It's like, that's a little blatant, but yeah, that's April and Andy. Like
that's how it works. So that's what it is. April and Andy is that's a great relationship. I love it.
It's one that shouldn't work, but it does.
You know what? We're talking about April and Andy. Let's go ahead and go to my number 4, which is Andy and April's Fancy Party, aka the episode where they get married.
Yeah.
Now, this episode, first of all, is hilarious. It has the animal control guys in it. I remember, so Harris, one of the guys, towards the end of the episode, after they get married, he's talking to Ben, and he points out April is like, hey, what's her deal? You think she's down to party? And he's like, her, who just got married like 20 minutes ago? Oh, she's the girl from The Thing. Yes, she's the woman from the wedding ceremony.
Those guys should have been used way more.
They are so funny. And Colton Dunn, I've started to watch Superstore, and Colton Dunn is hilarious in that as well. He's just a really funny guy. Yeah,
he is amazing in Superstore. The other one, I forget his name. The other guy has passed away recently in real life.
Yeah, I'd heard of that.
Harris Whittles.
He was funny too. Yeah, his real name's Harris.
Yeah.
So,
and I love the beginning when we don't know it's a wedding, and they're handing out invitations, and it was stuff to bring. And it was stuff to bring. It's like, please bring cooked steak. Please bring a 3D television, 50 pairs of 3D glasses, and a 3D copy of Avatar.
And then when Chris shows up, it's like, I was asked to bring the cake, and then he shows, but I brought a vegetable loaf. And Ron's like, did they ask you to bring a cake, or did they ask you to bring that? So, well, they
Yeah.
said a cake, but this is healthier. So not only have you deprived everyone of cake and not listened to what you heard, and like he starts getting madder. He's like, Ron, take a walk. He's like, okay.
Yeah. Also, I think it's funny. This is such a bizarre wedding, but April's parents are there and they're so on board. Like, yep, our 20-year-old daughter can marry this, like, what, 30, 35-year-old? I don't know how old he's supposed to be.
Yeah, and I did watch this episode today, and here's something that reminds me of its genius too, is that they let Leslie, because it's a 1 month in, and because it's so ridiculous, they let Leslie be a proper voice of reason for the audience, that we're like, this is ridiculous. No one should be doing this. This is crazy. Yeah. But yet the April Andy relationship lasts through the whole series. And so what I really like about it is that it is like, it has that theme in this episode of like, do we really know what's best for another couple? Can we really be the ones to say, oh, because you didn't do it this way? Like, they're going to experience their own stuff. They're going to go through their own journey. Let them have the happiness, join them in the happiness, and you can't control them.
No, exactly. And April and Andy always did things differently. They never did things like everybody else. And it works for them. Like, their relationship, like I said, it shouldn't work, but it does. It's the perfect example of them being a cat and a dog.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are times, like, you know, they did need some help, like Ben living with them. They needed someone to help them be like, you guys need to buy these adult things. You need to do some things like real adults.
That episode is stressful. I like cleaning. Like, I like to, you know, I keep my place clean. And their place not only was so filthy, it was like, yeah, we're just gonna put all our bills in the fridge. And it's like, I have all my bills on auto pay all of them that I can on auto pay, because otherwise I know I'd forget to pay some of them. And they were eating like, oh yeah, are you eating, Ben? Because like, I'm gonna start that over. Ben walks in, is like, are you eating turkey chili off of Frisbee? He's like, yeah, it's pretty cute, right? No, it's not.
I feel like you really, like you specifically, Brian, can completely identify with Ben, because I feel like Ben is that same type of neat freak. Like, he's a nerd like both of us, but he's also very left-brained, neat, organized sort of guy.
Yeah. So was it 2 weeks ago you were at my place? You were in town?
So yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and I was excited to show Matt, check it out. Like, I showed him how I reorganized my closet.
And I'm like, this is great. Good job, Brian.
And I know that no one else cares, but it's so satisfying for me. It's so much more functional.
Brian, I took a picture of it and then I printed it off and I put it on my fridge just for you. Guys, this is what Brian did.
Yeah. I mean, he's like, oh, my kid got an A in school. Well, your closet's a mess, so who cares?
That's what I tell him every day. Yeah.
You know
like,
what,
you need to earn my love.
Speaking of closets, your podcast studio actually looks pretty organized, except there is one hanger that's askew behind you.
Yeah, I did that on purpose, just to screw with you. I put these inside jokes in the closet. See what you notice. All right, what's your number 4? Did you just go, didn't you? You started, didn't you?
Yep, so that was my number 3. We're at your number 3.
No, my number 4 was
Andy
and April. We know what we're doing, guys. We're professionals. Don't worry.
We knew we were doing 5 all along.
All right, your number 3. Hit me with it.
Wait, that was my number 3. No, it wasn't.
That was my number 4. so far, I've said Sister City as number 5 and Andy and April's Family Party for number 4. And you saved Flu Season for later, and you did your honorable mention. Oh, your number 4 was Sister City, and that was my number 5. That's why we didn't talk about it.
Yeah. So
we're at the time.
You
only have 2 left?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, my number 3.
Because one of your, we share one. We both share Flu Season, and then we each have 2 more other than that.
All right. So my number 3 then, speaking of those guys, is Animal Control. Now, I know, like, I looked at some stuff online to see, like, a starting point. Like, what are some other people's thoughts of what they really love in Parks and Rec? I'm like, yeah, these are good episodes.
I didn't do that. I didn't care about other people's thoughts.
I wanted to remind myself, was like, is there any that I'm missing that are really good? I'm like, I don't think I have had Andy and April's family party or fancy party on there, but I'm like, no, wait, this is a really good episode. I'm glad I rewatched it because it's hilarious. But one that I didn't need to I didn't see it on too many other ones was Animal Control, because that episode sticks in my mind, especially that opening that they do. The opening is hilarious because you get to see into Animal Control. The best part of that whole thing is when he's like, what's this up here? And Colton Dunn's like, oh, we found a dead bird outside and we still wanted to set up like a Flintstone situation. And so we were trying to get into every time, like at the end of our workday, would tweet, but it didn't work.
And I love in the episode, he's like, this is where I wrote down a cool name for a dog, Bark Obama.
Bark Obama. And then Chris is trying to keep a level head, like Leslie's losing it, and Chris is there with her, and Chris is trying to keep a level head until, of course, he steps in a bear trap, and he's like, everyone's fired. The whole department is fired. And he's in a wheelchair for the rest of the episode, nursing his foot.
Which, like, Chris is so optimistic and positive. Chris is always the guy who'd be like, well, you're doing your best. You're super great. You know, he was always the positive guy, and Ben was the harsh one.
Except for when he was manically depressed. Apart from that.
Yes, of course that, but that's like manically depressed to a comic level.
Yeah.
But I think when he was screaming, "You're fired," I feel like we got a little hints of Rob Lowe coming through.
Yeah. True. And so the episode goes into, we need to find replacements for Animal Control, which we get these guys back because the two qualified candidates for interviews are the Animal Control guys. They're the only ones.
Yeah.
And so Harris has a similar type of thing where he walks in and is like, Harris, we just fired you. He's like, oh, snap, that's this job? What?
Yeah. And then Colton Dunn walks in. He's like, wait, oh, yeah, we rode together. We live in the same place, dog.
We're roommates.
Yeah. And then April gets rid of him. He's like, you throw cops aside? He's like, the cops are where? Bye.
And then Jerry has his interview because he started in Animal Control. And so, like, they're going through his resume. It's like, oh, you have the qualifications. You went to a 4-year university. He's like, oh, actually, when I was there, it was a 2-year university. And like, so you're not even qualified for the job you have now. And so April's like, oh, we're going to fire you. And Chris is like, no, you're not fired, but we will have to dock your pay. He's like, well, fair's fair.
Yeah. Jerry is... Did Jerry ever break that? I mean, I think very early on, before he became like his defining characteristics.
Yeah, early on, he wasn't so much like the meet the sad sack with like joy. He would be the butt of the jokes, but he wouldn't go along with it as much. And by the third season, they adjusted that to be like, no, we can't do that because then people will feel bad for you, and we don't want them to feel bad for you. We want them to just laugh along with what the rest of the Parks Department does.
And that's like when they gave him a super beautiful wife and said that he had the biggest penis in the world.
Yeah, then they also did those things to make up for it, which is great. I love that. And like, I love that Jerry became that character where it's like, he's happy. And forget what other people will say. Forget like all these other things that could go better for him in his life. He's happy, and that's what's important.
It is. What else was going on in that episode besides
Ron was sick. So Ron and Ann had a thing where Ron got sick from hanging out with what's her name and her daughters.
Oh, Diane and her kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
Xena
and her kids.
Yeah.
Yes, Lucy Lawless. And so he goes in, like Ann forces him to go to the hospital, get checked out. And so that's the one where like she's going through his medical information, is like any mental illness in your family. Well, I have an uncle who does yoga.
Yeah.
Like he redacted all this information. What's your sexual history? Epic and private.
Like, how much alcohol do you consume? One drink, one shelf.
That was great too. And then the other part of like the Animal Control thing is in front of the council and like trying to get April to be the person that they're going to do for it. And April ends up winning by saying, no, this doesn't make sense to have its own department. Merge it with Parks. Save on the budget. So.
Yeah, and it wasn't where she was trying. Was that when she was trying to get Lot 48 to be a dog park?
That's later, once April had been established in that position. So this was her getting to the deputy director of Animal Control.
Gotcha. No, I don't wouldn't have thought of that one. That one's a good one.
Yeah, it really like hits a high note right away with that soft
Yeah.
opening, and the rest of the episode is really good too. But that opening like sells it for you. I just died.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like I know it's not on the same like match as the fire from the fire drill from The Office, but to
Yeah.
me it's like I think of great soft openings, and this hits my list outside of the fire and the Backstreet Boys lineup for Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh yeah. Those two definitely both hit harder. I think the Parks and Rec isn't known for their cold opens the way The Office is, but it's hard
Yeah.
because there's less
Thanks for not
episodes.
correcting me when I kept saying soft open instead of cold open.
I know what you meant.
I didn't. I have no idea. I'm just here for the ride.
Yeah, it's like The Office might be a more iconic show, but there's less because there's less of Parks and Rec. There's less meh episodes. Like there's a handful of Office episodes that is like okay, where there's less of those with Parks and Rec because there's less episodes total.
Yeah.
So those are really it's hard to pick a favorite between the two of them. I know we're basically a very Office heavy podcast, and I think The Office has a better audience of fans, but I go back and forth as to which ones I like better.
Yeah. And there's plenty of people who they've come to like, oh, Parks and Rec is the better show. I'm like, that's great. Glad that you like it. I don't agree, but I also love Parks and Rec, even if it's not, in my opinion, as good as Office.
Yeah. So now we're on to my number
All right.
2.
Number 2
for me is one of the more iconic episodes, the fight at the Snake Hole Lounge. Well, it's just called the fight, but it takes place mostly at the Snake Hole Lounge.
So I was gonna rewatch this episode, and I'm blanking on it because I remember Ron getting drunk, and I remember his little dance with the hat.
Yeah,
I don't remember much else from that episode.
So here's the highlights: is the whole central fight becomes between Leslie and Anne because Anne is applying, or Leslie's kind of pushing Anne to apply for this director of public health within City Hall because that's when they had the opening when the old guy who was director of City Public Health was putting up all these signs about his wife being a cheater.
Oh yeah.
And so Leslie is like telling Anne, "Oh, here's all this research you can do for your interview," and wanting her to like just hunker down and do all that. And then at the same time, Tom invites everyone out to the Snake Hole Lounge. And then when Leslie sees Anne with the douche and having fun instead of preparing for the interview, she gets all mad about it. Whereas Tom is inviting everyone over to the Snake Hole Lounge to increase his own profits as business owner, which gets Chris upset because Chris is telling him as a public employee, you have to not do that and you have to sell your shares. And then Ron's thing is that Ron, that's what I like about this. Everyone has a thing. Ron's thing in the episode is that he made a deal with Tom that if he likes snake juice, he will talk it up to everybody. Of course, he loves it. Then he talks it up to everybody. And then the last thing that happens is I believe it's the birth of Burt Macklin.
I think so. Like I remember there was the Janet Snake Hole and Burt Macklin.
Yep.
That was fun. Mm-hmm. I remember that like right before you started talking. Like, oh yeah, there's that too.
Mm-hmm. I think Ben was just kind of there, but like Jean-Ralphio has a good runner where he keeps doing raps that end on a rhyme, but he ends one more syllable. He's like B to the O to the double S. Do what he says. Will he be successful? And he has a couple of those where it's like he doesn't quite land on the rhyme, but then like when Leslie is trying to revenge dance with Anne, she just needs somebody, so she's just like, Jean-Ralphio, dance up on me. And he's like, yes, and of course he goes and he's like grinding up on Leslie. So it's Leslie and Jean-Ralphio against Anne and the douche. Quite the pairings we got there.
That's that like I feel like you just had a couple of brain cells die just saying that sentence.
Yeah, pretty much. And of course, it's got the montage of everybody except for Chris and Donna gets completely drunk. Yeah,
Donna's on the juice cleanse, and Chris is Chris.
Yeah, Chris is like, I believe an ounce of that would literally kill me. At the end, Donna's bringing everybody home. He's like, is everybody here? He's like, yep. Anne took a cab. Jerry's on the roof. And you see Jerry Of course, I love the detail. Jerry's got one shoe off, just tied to the roof of the car, and if
I,
someone
I
makes
like
yeah.
I like those episodes where it's like you have all the cast like somehow get inebriated or something, and it's just like the retelling or seeing what happens with them, similar to like the cupcakes and the Packer cupcakes and like what everyone had happen the night before. Or New Girl has done that a couple times. So
yes,
those are always fun to let them be their extra silly.
or even like at Ben and Leslie's wedding at the end, like the camera pans out and everybody's drunk and passed out around them.
Just like every day here at the Rodenberg household.
Everyone's drunk and passed out.
Yeah, we lace the kids toothpaste at night to get them to go to sleep faster. So,
oh, gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
Follow me for more parenting tips. All right. CPS is calling. I don't know what's this. All right. So my number 2 is, I think, an unexpected episode, but there's especially one section of it that I just died. The whole episode's really good, but this section that they do, they nail this joke and they let the joke play out so well. And that is the episode, The Comeback Kid. Do you know what happens in this episode?
Are you talking about the joke that's in the deleted scenes?
No, I don't know. Oh, that one? No, I'm talking about like it's actually like a prolonged gag that goes on for a couple minutes. So
maybe
this is.
Me, I will. I remember, but I don't know about the title. What episode that is?
Chris goes to visit Ben, who's depressed, and so he's doing his stop motion, and like that's a terrible hobby, and he's like, it shows him what he has so far, and he's like, that's all that I've got. And so then Ben later goes to visit Andy and April, and they have bought a dog. That's what they're doing this episode. So this is the birth of Champion, and so Ben comes in, sees the dog, and is just like, I hate to ask this, but how many legs did this dog have when you found it? Great. Like, it had 3. It's like Champion can do more with 3 legs than anyone can do with 4, any dog can do with 4. And then Andy's like, April's like, except for digging. He's terrible at digging.
Which is a great joke.
But the Leslie one, the Leslie important one, is the big event that she has. She tries to get Pistol Pete to do a dunk, and so they can only get this ice skating rink.
Oh, I know what you're talking about now. Yeah.
All right, and so that's what the gag is that they have this terrible thing that they have this terrible event that just nothing goes right because every single person had contributed in some way, but their own personal shortcomings held them back. And so Ron's driving a truck, but it gets pulled over and he's not legally allowed to drive this truck. So they have to put all the materials that they had into Leslie's car, which means that they only have half a banner, which means they don't have nearly enough red carpet to make it all the way to the podium. Also, April, when she booked this basketball court, it was currently being fitted as an ice skating court. Or ice skating rink. And so the whole thing's on ice. And then also Ron couldn't get a podium built in time, or he could get the podium, but not the stairs. So all this goes together for them to walk out onto the ice, clutching each other with the song Get On Your Feet playing. And then they keep slipping on the ice, and then they're able to stand, and the music cuts, and they stand back up. And then they start the song again, Get On Your Feet, and then they fall on the ice again. And they let that play out for a perfect amount of time. It is so hilarious. The amount of times that they keep slipping, the physical comedy of it is great. This is great writing of a sitcom to make every single thing pile on to create this awesome moment that has like 5 levels working. And then Pistol Pete finally comes out. He's got his crap together, flips on the ice, breaks his arm. The event's a disaster. It's terrible. And Ben's like, you know what? I should be your campaign manager. I can do that. And it creates that resolution where he's that for the rest of the season. Yeah,
definitely. And I can't hear that song, that Get On Your Feet. I can't hear that without thinking about the scene.
It's so funny. And like that scene itself, the whole episode's great, but that scene itself really highlights this episode for me.
Yeah. No, as soon as you got to I realized that's the episode. Oh yes, that gag. I mean, it is a perfect moment.
Perfect song choice too. I love it.
Yeah, and I definitely wouldn't have thought of that. So I didn't do a ton of prep for this. I probably should have done more, but I just knew a couple episodes that stuck in my head, and I looked up a few others. So are we on? We already knew what your number one was, which was on my list. So now we're on my number one.
Your number one.
My number one, and I think I've talked about this in this podcast, is the two parties in season 5, which is the bachelorette parties of Ben and Leslie.
Yes, those. For me, real quick, I know you're going to get into it. I'll just say ahead of time, that episode is really funny, but I think that's just a quality episode, period. And I know that we were just saying what's the best episodes, and in my mind, I just was like, no, I want to go with the funniest episodes. So that one is a really good character episode to me. Yeah. And it's funny, but it's not quite as funny as some of these other ones, which is why I don't think it made my list. But go ahead.
That's fair. It's my personal favorite, and I have a little bit of a rant about it that I will get to in a little bit. Spoilers for that. But yeah, I love for the guys, you get to see like a window into everybody's world. Like it starts out with Ben, beer and board games. And of course, he's playing Settlers of Catan, which, Matt, have you played that game?
Yep.
Yeah, me too. I'm not nearly as good as Ben, but also when he's like, it's 7 contiguous segments for longest road and 10 points for the win. A booyah! And it's the way he says booyah. Which, first of all, should we bring booyah back?
No, let's leave it. My kids, though, are bringing Up Your Butt and Around the Corner back.
Oh, awesome. That's like from the 90s.
That is. It's really cute to hear Miles say it. Like, and I don't remember the context because he said it and it was like way wrong or something, but it caught me so off guard where it's like I had something I wanted to say, like, I felt like I had something up my nose, not like a booger, but it's like, oh, you're gonna stick that up my nose or something like that. And he's like, up your nose and around the corner, and I'm like, kid, what are you doing?
I like the spirit of it.
Yeah, the spirit was there. A little misguided.
Yeah. So I mean that's Ben's world, and then you have Tom's world with the crazy alcohol, and of course Tom's into anything trendy and weird. And I love Ron's. There's no wrong way to consume alcohol. Yeah. This is the wrong way to consume alcohol.
I think that's the line of the episode for me. I was wrong. This is the wrong way.
Yeah. Or I mean, I'm not even a sports guy, but I even know that when they get to the Andy party where it's, Chris gets them to play at the stadium with the Colts. I'm not a sports guy, but I know that would be amazing for if you were a Colts fan. And he's talking to Reggie Wayne, one of the players. He's like, I want to throw catch a pass from you. He's like, keep a spiral tight. And the guy's like, I'll try. Like, he's a professional football player. Like, and Andy's giving him tips,
Yeah. Well, it would probably be Andrew Luck. I can't remember the episode, but Andrew Luck was a quarterback. Reggie Wayne was not.
Oh, maybe it was.
Yeah. So also then there is, who was it? Who was on the Colts back then? Because there's one defensive player that was talking Donna, and she's like, no, only position players or nothing.
Yeah.
I love that she shot down an NFL defensive player.
Yeah. Donna is like a fictional, like, you can just say that she has all the choices in the world. Like, people are falling down to get to her. Because within the universe, it's true.
It's true.
And of course, there's a little bit of Jerry where he spills ice cream. He's like, all right, here's your new one. Like, I always make a backup for Jerry. He spills it about half the time. Yep. And then later on, they're like, oh, we left Jerry at the gas station. Oh, well.
What was I see? I remember the guys one so much more. What was going on with the girls' bachelorette party?
Well, real quick before we go, obviously Ron's was just a steakhouse, which there's nothing much to say about that. But with the girls,
there's nothing comedically to say about that. That is when I go to heaven, that is what my heaven is going to look like. It's just a big steakhouse.
Cool.
With Disney World in it, apparently.
Cool. Can I come?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
If I'm dead.
Dude, I will give you the best beef tenderloin you've ever had.
Nice. The women are having a bachelorette party, but at the same time, so Jam and Leslie had this deal that they were going to wait till like the vote to see what they can do with the Lot 48 at Park versus he wanted to make a Paunch Burger. But he went up and had put up the sign. And so Leslie decided she was going to plant some Wamapolk Indian, going back to those guys, artifact, because you know that if any construction site finds any Wamapolk artifacts, they have to stop construction. She does that, but then later on she gets guilt and she gets all the girls to go out there. So it's Leslie and Donna and Anne and April and everybody, they're digging out, trying to pick up all of the stuff that she left there to, to not, commit fraud, basically. So they're basically their
That's
party
right.
turns into a disaster where they're out all digging in the ground.
Yep.
And of course, it has the gag that would have been a funny joke if it wasn't word for word the same situation, a joke they stole from The Office. You know what I'm talking about?
Which one is that?
So, of course, they have a male stripper who came as dressed up as Abraham Lincoln. And then later on, when they're digging, you pan out and the stripper is digging too. And Donna says, "We paid for an hour. You're going to dig for an hour." Which is just like in The Office when they had Elizabeth the stripper answering the phones, and Dwight's like, "We paid for an hour. You're going to work for an hour." So it's like the same writing crew basically, and like of course they stole that from The Office, but it was a funny joke if it was the first thing.
I think I've heard that joke before of The Office too, with all the prostitutes that I hang out with. They tell me that one. The other
stripper, not a prostitute.
Oh,
okay.
In that case, it's completely fine.
Before we go to your comment, I have a thing. Okay, she says we paid for an hour. Okay, so Matt, I'm not too familiar with strippers. I've actually never been to a party that has a stripper, and I don't really want to. It's not my thing. I'm guessing you haven't either.
Just my 8th birthday party.
I figured as much. Okay, but okay. What I imagine is they come in and they're like, "Ooh, here's a pizza. No, but I'll take my clothes off. Whatever, whatever they do." And they play a
song.
Script, yeah. Yes, they play a song and they start taking their clothes off. What are you gonna do for the rest of the hour? Do they put their clothes back on and strip to a new song? Like a song's what at max maybe 5 minutes.
I would imagine they have multiple songs and that they would do it for the entire time. That's my guess. I also have never, despite my jokes that I'm sure you all took seriously.
Yes.
I have never seen a stripper or been at a place with strippers. Yeah, so I don't know.
I was thinking about that. Like, what do you do for the full hour? They said he's already once they're naked or wearing a thong or whatever they get down to, then unless they put more clothes on to strip again. But that kind of
they do. Yep.
Okay. If anyone is a stripper, email us to let us know how your work goes.
Why are we asking for this? Why do we need this question answered?
I don't want pictures. I just am curious about the stripping world.
Are you? I mean, that's not like it's better.
I don't.
Maybe it's a little better, but
I don't want to hire one. But I'm saying I never thought about this.
I have strip-related questions, and I need them answered.
Okay.
Well, we've learned a lot about where Brian goes in his private time.
Strippers.
Not to strippers, but to think about strippers and questions for them. So the end of this episode is, speaking of the Wamapoke stuff that we talked about earlier on, what I loved.
Oh, yeah.
It was another example of loving how they're playing on the white guilt, especially with Jam now.
Yeah.
And so this was like, it was fun to see Jam get a comeuppance in this way.
Yeah.
Where the chief was telling him what he needed to do. Like, the chief, knew what was going on and said to Leslie and was just like, between the two of them, like, don't do this again. This is, that's not cool. And Leslie knew that, and they had a good relationship. So it's, it was more like a verbal thing than we're going to cause a stink. But he did do her a favor of making Councilman Jam jump through these hoops of oh, you got to wear this headdress. Wait, that's offensive. And everything that the chief asked Councilman to do, was always the wrong thing. And so Jam was like, I'm just trying to do the right thing here. I'm trying to appease you in a non-racially charged way.
I watched it today. It's like, well, clearly he's like, we should put on headdresses and smoke the peace pipe and of course all the stereotypical stuff. And he's like, well, this is clearly offensive. He's like, is it, white man? No, of course not. You never quite see Jam flustered. He's always the villain who's getting one over on Leslie. It's kind of cool to see him on the losing side for once. Yeah.
Well, his whole life is on the losing side, so
yes, but this time he knows it.
You're right. That's a good episode. That's a like I said, that's a very good character episode. I especially love just seeing the guys together, like the girls' bachelorette party, and
Oh,
trying to make up for that wasn't as much my thing, but the guys' camaraderie and them growing together and bonding and seeing all these different windows into them was great.
also, I don't know if I love it or hate it, but there's also a rant at the end when they're all saying to Chris, like, "Hey, like you didn't get your moment because you never got engaged or married, but hey, one day you're going to have this great fitness woman." And then Andy goes on this whole rant. It's like, maybe you marry April. Maybe I die and you marry April, but then I'm not dead. I'm waiting. And he goes on this long thing where everyone's just staring at him. And he ends like, I thought you were my friend, man. I thought you were my friend. And it's like, I can't tell if that was a horrible joke or an amazing joke.
Oh, I think you know. It was an amazing
It
joke.
was an amazing joke.
So here's a couple, like I wasn't gonna have these honorable mentions, but I'm not gonna talk as nearly as long about these. I'm just gonna just throw them out. But a couple really good ones are the debate with Paul Rudd, fantastic. Anytime Paul Rudd's on the show, he's really good. I love Paul Rudd. Season 4, the two villains of both him and Catherine Hahn, great villains, because like Jam is a jerk, but these guys, like Hahn, is just really good at her job.
Oh yeah.
All of it is unpersonal, and so to see her like not being doing it vindictively, like she doesn't really want to be there either. She's just getting paid, so she's gonna do it, and she's gonna do it well. And then Paul Rudd is so lovable, and he's kind of like this puppet that, like, he's not trying to do it in a jerk way. He's just an entitled puppet, and so both of those two as villains together worked in a way that you liked both of them. You didn't have to hate them. You're still rooting against them, but you didn't have to hate them.
Yeah, I think that's definitely. I like her character. I like in the season 7 when she goes to Leslie and Ben's house because Leslie and Ben have the kids because they did the time jump, and she's wearing a poncho because like everything in her house is sticky and messy. And one of the kids runs by with a paintbrush, and she's just like, "Poncho!" And she, the way she says that, like, I vindictively, like, I was right.
Exactly. Ron and Leslie was a good one in the final season.
That was a good one. Yeah,
they're trapped together to work through their issues. And gives us good flashbacks as to how they got that divide between them. Women of the Year, I really liked Ron's whole. That was another good season 2 episode. I liked Ron's whole attitude, especially like the back and forth with Leslie, and she's just like, that doesn't sound like the attitude of an award winner. Well, it's my attitude, and I've won an award, so
it is an award-winning.
Yeah. Then there was one other. Going to London. I thought that was also a really good episode. Ron being completely unimpressed with all of Europe. Andy really connecting with Peter, whatever his name is, his character.
I love that speech that Andy gives. I think it was just when he gives a speech to April saying like, whenever you look up at the moon, no, I will be looking at the same moon, or looking at a moon too. Not the same moon, obviously. Like,
yeah. Oh, and then also in the final season, the Johnny Karate good final episode was a great like break from the norm and just showed us an episode of Johnny Karate with these characters. A lot of fun. And John Cena. So lots of good stuff. Anyone that you got off the top of your head?
Give me 1 second here. I'm sure there's, by the way, I know there's plenty that we missed because there's so many episodes. I like Ben's parents just for the casting. Like Jonathan Banks as Ben's dad is like A+ casting. Like
Jonathan Banks has a lot of things as A+ casting.
Yeah, he's just A+ casting and everything. We just keep saying A+ casting, but he can be intense over the littlest things. I love that. We're a Twizzlers family.
All I know is it's my birthday.
I just listened to that episode recently of Community.
Listen to it. Didn't watch it. You listened to it.
Well, because with my work, I with my new job, actually, I can listen to work. I can't watch, but because I'm in grocery stores stocking stuff, but I can have an earphone in, and so I'll listen to shows that I've seen a bunch of times. I'll listen to Parks and Rec, or Community, or Gilmore Girls, or The Office, or something. It's because I've seen it so many times I don't have to watch it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good. Well, not good about Gilmore Girls, but good about the other stuff. Any other ones?
Give me 1 second again. I actually just rewatched that one today.
This is also a show that had a really good series finale. They really ended it well.
Yes, they did. Oh, the camping one was good, where they ended up at the creepy B&B.
And Tom on his Sky Mall stuff.
Oh yeah, I got all this stuff from Sky Mall. Or Greg Pakaitis, the first Halloween one. How crazy Leslie got about that kid.
Yeah, or the Halloween surprise, which was the one where Ben posed to Leslie.
Mm-hmm. Or the telethon one in season 2, which actually was pretty good. Reminded me of a similar telethon episode of Full House.
Yeah, filibuster episode was also really good. I
like
like the
Pat
90s
Oswald?
themed. Yeah, the 90s theme. No, when she had to, was he in that? Because I know that she had to filibuster in order to let
those were two different
Eagleton
filibusters.
have a vote.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, she had to filibuster. So she had thrown a 90s party for Ben, but she had to get called away from that. And so Jam is trying to get her to not filibuster. And he's tempting her with margaritas. She has to go to the bathroom at one point. So he's like tempting her with that. He turns up the heat a lot. But then that also episode had a guest star of She-Hulk who was dating Tom at that time. So.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Not in real life. In the show, those two were dating.
Yes.
And she was going off to like a Doctors Without Borders sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And also Donna and Ron were hunting at the arcade machine in that.
Oh, yeah. That was
a good episode. I like that one.
All right. Should we finally talk about the flu season?
Oh, yeah. We haven't even brought that up. Oh, my gosh. That is the freaking funniest episode ever. Like, Chris sells it for me. Like, there's a lot of good things in this episode, but Chris, his whole body breaking down and is like, stop pooping, which apparently that was like one of the few lines he was able to like just improvise and come up with.
Yeah.
He's like, the writing is so tight, but I feel very proud that I was able to get that one to stick in the show.
Yeah.
So all of that was great. And like Anne's little arc of, Chris has always felt like so intimidating to me. Mm-hmm. And so to see him like this helps bring that down. April being a jerk to Anne and taking out her frustration with Andy on Anne. And Leslie having to get to that give that speech for the Harvest Festival. And so she steals all of this medicine and overdoses not overdoses in a dangerous way, but in a don't do this at home sort of way. She gets to the thing, she's talking to Ben, is like, wait a second, the ceiling and the wall just switch places.
Yep.
Okay, we're good.
And she says, there's a little thing that she says, instead of Chamber of Commerce, I have to meet Ben at the Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah. And then like she nails it. And then she nails the presentation. And then right when she's about to start slipping, then Ben like cuts her off and is able to save it.
Yeah.
Stop everyone from seeing her.
I love that Tom in this episode has like a Michael Scott moment. So like in the office, early on, you might be wondering, like, how has Michael got to get this position? He's so incompetent. And then they have when he's at the client with Tim Meadows and he actually gets the sale. Like, oh, wow, this guy's actually good at his job. Whereas Tom in this episode, he just seems like a complete jerk. Like, oh my gosh, he's just out, hanging out at a hot tub with all these guys not helping at all. But then at the end, he's like, oh yeah, the business guys that took out to the hot tub, they donated a bunch of vehicles because they own car dealerships. And we got all these cars for free for the Harvest Festival. And like, oh, in his own selfish way, Tom was actually helping.
Yep, he schmoozes well.
Yes, that's why like the main cast. I mean, not counting like Jam or Tammy or the villains. Like the main cast all have their flaws, but they all are a team.
Yeah,
and this episode shows it really well.
And that's why with like the comeback kid, their flaws all together like compiled to create a problem. But then we also see on the other side of that a lot of other episodes when all of their strengths come together. And that's and like Harvest Festival was one of them where all of their strengths came together.
Yes, exactly. And we didn't even mention in this episode, there's also first time you get a good pairing of Chris in real life, Andy and Ron hanging out because Andy is filling in as Ron's assistant, and they just end up hanging out. And there's the big line like, oh, I don't go much for ethnic food. Like, well, this one literally killed the guy. You had me at Meat Tornado.
That's right. Was that also the one where like Ron was teaching him some stuff like about being a man? Or am I confusing?
Not about being a man. They were talking about like libertarianism, and they had the line where And he's like, "What's it called when a couple of religious clerics are in charge? An oligarchy." And
A religious oligarchy. And he's like, holy crap!
Yeah. I think everyone has a good showing. Even Anne is sometimes the bland character. She doesn't have like a big flashy humor side to her. She's bouncing back and forth between being intimidated by Chris and fielding April being like a not so nice to her, to use not other words.
Yes. Yeah. That's good stuff. Lots of good stuff on here. Mm-hmm. I'm a little surprised that we didn't have any like episodes with Tammy in it, because she's like a hurricane when she comes in. But
yeah, and you can definitely tell the chemistry, because they're married in real life. You can tell they just have fun going back and forth like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that's it. Tell us if, we definitely did miss some, but we want to hear what are some of your favorite ones, because we probably didn't talk about it, and it's always fun to reminisce. There's a lot of great episodes, and if you tell us, oh, this is my favorite, we'll probably be like, oh yeah, that's a great one. We loved it. It's awesome. So,
and I mean, my guess is if you're listening this far into the episode, you watched Parks and Rec, but if you didn't, check out the show. I mean, we spoiled a bunch of episodes for you, but it's a great show.
I'm just curious. I want to hear from you. If you don't watch Parks and Rec, but you're still listening, why? I'm just like, thank you. That is a compliment to us.
Back when we had Dan on, he's like, I listened to your Arrested Development episode, even though I didn't watch Arrested Development.
What a man. By the way, Dan, if you're listening to this, watch Arrested Development. It's hilarious. You can stop after season 3 if you want to.
Agreed.
I still like season 4.
I don't think I think I finished 4. I don't think I finished 5.
Yeah, it got worse and worse after. Like season 1 and 2 are just almost perfect, pretty much. Yeah. Season 3 is good, but it's starting to get a little stale. Season 4, they lost some of that magic, and season 5 and 6 are just bleh. So,
all right, hey Matt, do you remember what last week's trivia is? Because I don't.
Nope.
Well, we're going to totally remember this right now and not look up what it is and be back in a minute.
Oh, my brain. I got it.
So last week we talked about bromances, and one of the main ones we talked about was Troy and Abed. And
in the morning.
Yep, I resisted, but you didn't.
I can't not.
Originally, that wasn't supposed to be like the best friend pairing. What was originally supposed to be the best friend pairing, it was actually Troy and Pierce. You can see a little bit hints of it here and there. They do have a couple moments, and they did live together for a while too. And that's why they're sitting by each other, next to each other on the end of the table across from Jeff. But I think they figured out early on that the chemistry between Danny Pudi and Donald Glover was so great that they had to just go with that. And I think that was 100% the best move.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't mind I think that there's a good dynamic of Troy and Pierce, like these two opposites, but you've got to take advantage of their chemistry. So,
and ironically, I think the weakest of, if you take all the any two pairings of the Greendale 7, I think the weakest one is Pierce and Abed.
Yeah, probably.
Mm-hmm. So this week, I actually have a multiple choice trivia for you.
Ooh, you have a 1 in 4 shot.
Yeah. All right. So Parks and Rec, it's about local government, and several actual real life politicians appeared on the show. So which of these 4 politicians never appeared on Parks and Rec, which of course means the other 3 did? Is it President Joe Biden, President Barack Obama, Senator Newt Gingrich, or Senator John McCain?
Or President Abraham Lincoln?
Yes, although that
stripper one, President Abraham Lincoln.
President Abraham Lincoln. Yes.
Well, there you go. Let us know A, B, C, or D, and if you say E, I'll slap you. All right. Well, until next time, thanks again for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We got some great stuff in the works coming up soon. So make sure you're listening. Make sure you're watching. And until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Brian. And bye, little Sebastian.
Stay tuned and
I ruined it.
Keep watching. No, you didn't. Nope, that was perfect. Stay tuned and keep watching.